Namaskar everyone. Myself Dr. Priyanka Verma, working as a Senior Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and IT, IIS Team to be University. Today we shall be talking about how to format our web pages through CSS. In our previous classes, we have already discussed about HTML. Now, today we shall be discussing about a new language that is CSS, which is basically used to format our web pages. So let's quickly go through our presentation which will help us to know more about CSS. Okay. So now the first thing that we need to understand over here is that HTML, when it was created, it was never intended to contain tags for formatting a particular web page. So there were tags like font and there were other color attributes also, which were initially added to the HTML specification, but then it actually became a nightmare. Why? Because when we talk about development of large websites, fonts and color information to be added for every single page can become a very long and a very expensive process. So, how can this problem be solved? This problem can be solved with the help of CSS. CSS was basically created by the World Wide Web Consortium and it is used to add formatting to the web page, and due to this the formatting that was actually added to the HTML web pages would be removed because now the formatting would be completely happening through CSS. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is used to define the styles for our web pages, which includes the layout and the variations in display, and it is applicable for the different devices as well as for the different screen sizes. It basically saves a lot of work because it can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once, which means that we can format multiple web pages at one single go with the help of a single CSS file. But that is only possible if in case we want to apply the same formatting to the multiple web pages. Okay, so how does CSS work? CSS basically consists of a selector. The selector is the name of the element and it consists of a declaration block. Within the declaration block, we specify the properties, as in the formatting properties that we want to apply to the particular element. Like in this particular example, we have used the H1 selector, that is the heading tag, and the formatting that we want to apply to the heading tag is that we want its color to be blue and we want the size of the header to be 12 pixels. Usually H1 has its own size, but if in case we want to change the font size, we can change it with the help of font size property. Now, multiple declarations, that means we can specify as many CSS properties as we want, but those CSS properties are separated with the help of a semicolon. Always remember this, that when we are specifying the properties through CSS, we need to separate the properties through a semicolon. So every time before closing the braces, we need to ensure that we put a semicolon, which will ensure that after this there is going to be another property which can be specified for this particular selector. So multiple CSS declarations as in multiple CSS properties, they are separated with semicolons, and the declaration blocks, they are surrounded by curly braces. So I hope the CSS syntax is clear to all of you. Now, the next thing that we need to understand is the concept of ID and the concept of class. So, what is ID and what is class? The ID is basically used to select a particular element. We can create a particular ID, as in this particular example I have created an ID is created with the help of hash symbol. So with the help of hash symbol I have created the ID, namely para1, and within this ID I have specified the formatting, that the alignment of the text would be center and the color of the text would be red. Now to whichever element you want to apply this particular formatting. You can specify it through the ID attribute. So this particular formatting I was wanting to apply to the paragraph tag. So what I did was, within the body tag, I created a paragraph tag, and the ID attribute I specified to be para1. And within this, I've written that my name is Priyanka. So what would happen? The This particular text, that is my name is Priyanka, would be aligned in the center, and the color of the text is going to be red, right? So through this ID, we can apply the same kind of formatting to multiple elements. That means, let's say, for example, I want to apply the same formatting to H1 tag. So I can again say H1 ID is equal to para1, and then whatever text I specify inside this H1, this particular formatting would be applied to that particular element. So this is what is the purpose of ID. Next we have class. What is the purpose of class? Now understand the difference. The ID is created with the help of hash symbol, and the class is created with the help of dot symbol, right? So again, I have created a class, namely center. Now the formatting that is given is that the alignment of the text is going to be center, and the color of the text is going to be red. Now this particular formatting I wanted to apply to this paragraph tag. So what I said was, paragraph class. If I have to apply the formatting through ID, I will specify the ID attribute. And if I have to apply the formatting through class, I will specify the class attribute. So I will say paragraph class is equal to center. So what would happen? Through this particular formatting, the text which is specified inside the paragraph is going to be aligned in the center, and the color of the text is going to be red. So the class selector, it is used to select the elements with the specific class, and to create a class we need to use the period character, right? Now the question that arises is, we are doing the same thing with the help of ID, and we are doing the same thing with the help of class. So what is the difference? The difference between ID and class is that ID can be used to identify one element only, whereas a class can be used to identify more than one element. So this is the basic difference. And another difference is that if in case we want that multiple class formatting, like let's say for example in one class I have specified that the color should be red, and in another class I have specified that the alignment of the text should be center. Now, I want to apply both the formatting to the paragraph tags. What can I say? I can say paragraph class is equal to, let's say, class 1 and class 2. These are the two classes that I have created. So I'll say paragraph class is equal to class 1 space class 2. So like this, I can specify multiple formatting. That means I can make use of the multiple classes also when I am making use of the class attribute. So this is the basic difference between ID and class. I repeat that with the help of class attribute, we can identify more than one element. We can make use of multiple classes, and how we can do? We can do it with the help of space. Now, if in case we have to apply the same formatting to multiple elements, so instead of typing that formatting again and again, what we can do is we can use the CSS grouping selector. What it does is that I want to apply the same formatting to H1 also, H2 also, and paragraph tag also. So how do I do it? I simply say H1, comma H2, comma P, and then within the braces I specify alignment center, and the color is it red. So what would happen? The same formatting would be applied to H1, it would be applied to H2, and it would be applied to paragraph tag also. So instead of writing the code again and again, what I did was I used the CSS grouping selector. That means the same formatting is going to be applied to H1, H2 as well as paragraph. Now, we have been talking about CSS, CSS and CSS. So how do we actually create the CSS? There are three methods of creating a CSS: external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. So, what is the difference? When we talk about external CSS, there is a separate file which is created with the CSS extension. So altogether, we would be creating two files. One file is going to be the HTML file that we have already created, and we would be creating a new file with the .css extension. Now, this CSS file is going to contain the entire formatting information. So, if my body tag contains H1 paragraph tag, so the formatting of H1 and the paragraph tag would be contained inside a complete separate file, which is going to be saved with .css extension, right? So, two files, one file is going to be the HTML file and another file is going to be .css file. Inside the CSS file, I'll specify the complete formatting information, and inside the HTML file, I would specify the tags as in the content of my web page. So, how would my HTML page refer to that particular CSS page? My HTML page would refer to the CSS page by making use of the link element. This link element is specified inside the head section. So, in the HTML5, the file, the code that I need to write is head, then link rel. Rel is the attribute. Then you need to specify style sheet because we are referring to a style sheet file. Href, it stands for hyperlink reference, is equal to my style dot css. We haven't specified any path because we are assuming that both the HTML file and the CSS file are saved inside the same folder. If in case your CSS file is created inside a separate folder, then obviously you need to specify the complete path over here. But currently I'm assuming that both the files are inside the same folder, so that is only why I have not specified the path over here. So to refer to that external CSS file, I had to make use of the link tag, and there I had to specify the hyperlink reference where I specified the name of the CSS through which the formatting is going to be taken. So within the HTML file, I've just created the H1 and the paragraph tag, and the formatting information for formatting the H1 and the paragraph tag is present inside my style.css, right? Now, next kind of CSS file is the internal CSS. So how is this internal CSS created? Internal CSS, as the name itself is suggesting, it is created inside the same HTML file as if we would be creating a HTML file and we would be saving it with .html extension. And inside that HTML file, there's going to be the style tag. Within the style tag, we would specify the entire formatting information. So we want to format our body, we want to format our H1. So whatever formatting information is going to be there, that formatting information is going to be specified inside the style tag. So I hope the difference is clear. In the external CSS, what were we doing? We were creating two separate files. In the internal CSS, what are we doing? We are creating a single HTML file. And inside that HTML file, inside the head tag, we are creating the style tag where we would be specifying the entire formatting information, right? Then the third kind of CSS file is the inline CSS. What do we do through inline CSS? In inline CSS, we apply the style attribute to the tag itself. That means if I want to format the header tag, what I will do is instead of creating a separate style section, I would make use of the style attribute. And inside that styles attribute, I would be specifying the entire formatting information, as in the color of the text should be blue, the alignment of the text should be center. So this entire information I would be specifying with the help of the style attribute only. So the name itself is suggesting inline. That means within the HTML document itself, within the attribute, the tag itself, you have created a style attribute, and through the style attribute, you are specifying the entire formatting information, right? So I hope all the three types of CSS files are clear to you. Now, the last question that arises is that what if there is more than one style which is specified for a particular HTML element? That means H1 tag is being formatted with the help of inline CSS also, with the help of internal CSS also, and with the help of external CSS also. So, how would the browser identify? There is a cascading order which is being followed. This cascading order says that first of all, the inline formatting is going to be applied. That means if H1 is making use of the style attribute, so firstly, the style attribute formatting is going to be applied, then the external style sheet, and then the internal style sheet. So this is how the cascading would happen. I repeat, first of all, the style attribute, then the external CSS, and then the internal CSS. Then finally, at last, the browser default is going to be followed. So this is how the formatting can be done. So with the help of CSS, the work became very simple because now the formatting was completely separated from the main code of the HTML file. HTML file would just be referring to the elements as in the content of the web page, and CSS would be completely focusing on the formatting of the web page. So within the HTML web page, we would specify the content as in the headers, the paragraphs, or any other content of the web page, and the formatting is going to be specified inside a separate CSS file, or it can be specified as a inline style, or it can be specified as a internal CSS. So this was all about CSS. I hope the complete concept of CSS is clear to all of you. Thank you so much and see you all in the further lectures.